Hey folks, it's Jerlene and I'm live with an episode of Talk of the Town. It's Thursday. I know it's been a minute. Had to take a break. Had to take a break from all the political shenanigans. But I'm here to have a conversation about something that's brand new happening next week. I have a guest. And I'm gonna jump right in because it's actually gonna be a real short conversation. But this evening I am joined with Jose Osuna. I hope I said that properly. A principal consultant for Osuna Consulting and co-founder of Restore I.N.K, coming to talk about the inaugural Reentry week. What does that mean, Reentry week? Well, I'm gonna ask some questions and we're gonna learn together. But anyway, I'm just jumping right in. Again, it's Jerlene, talk of the town, live from Long Beach, mama with a voice, here to engage, inform, and inspire. And I'm gonna go ahead and bring in Jose. Hey, Jose.
Hi, Jerlene.
How are you?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me on here today.
How are you managing this heat right now?
The best I can by staying as cool as I can, trying to keep the fan going because I don't have no AC. So,
I don't have any AC either, and I had to close the windows because the kids next door are a little loud, and there's a little yapping dog. So right now, so if I start sweating, I'll be all right. I have some water.
you'll be all right. I got some water too.
All right, folks. Jerlene, here with Jose. Did I say your last name properly?
Absolutely.
Osuna. Well,
Yep.
welcome. Thank you for joining for this. We're gonna have a brief conversation about something that's happening next week, and I'm just gonna just jump right in. What's happening next week in Long Beach?
Well, it's something that's been a long time coming. Long Beach is going to have its very first inaugural Long Beach Reentry Week, a whole week dedicated to the reentry community and connecting the Long Beach community at large with those of us that have experienced incarceration.
Okay. What is reentry? Like, reincarceration, reentry. What does that all mean? What does
You
that
know,
mean?
in this context, it really means the process of folks that have experienced incarceration re-entering their community wherever that may be. That whole process of coming home after being incarcerated, whether it's in state prison or the county jail. It's a re-entry process. It's coming back into our community.
Okay, so I'm going to pull up a flyer real quick. So hopefully folks can see that. As Jose shared with us, it's going to be brand new next week, re-entry week in Long Beach, and there's going to be quite a few events. So you have been in this work of re-entry for a while, and you and I, we talked briefly, and we kind of, you talked about, you're sharing with me some of the things that are important in this work. Um, well, first, how did you come into this work? Like, how did we get to next week? Like, tell me something about yourself and
So,
how are we getting to next week?
right. I mean, uh, I'm a member of the reentry community. I experienced incarceration for over 13 years of my life. I got incarcerated at a very young age. First time I got incarcerated, I was 17 years old. And, up until the age of 35, throughout that time, I ended up spending 13 years of my life incarcerated in different prisons and county jails here in California. And so that's why this work is important because it's very personal. It's something that I experienced myself. And, I ended up at a place called Homeboy Industries for a little while. And,
Mhm.
they helped me in my reentry process. But they're all the way out in Los Angeles. And, that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to start to bring the work home here to my city, to Long Beach, because I know that the resources are lacking here. We're doing a better job, but we could do a lot better.
Well, I'm not necessarily new to the conversation of reentry yet. I noticed over the last, I don't know, decade that there's been when you said you just mentioned lack of resources, there's been a lack of conversation around it. Why? Why now?
I think the conversations are long overdue. Right now, there's a political climate, at least here in LA County, right, where folks are really, folks in positions of power are starting to see that this is a conversation that needs to be had. The rest of LA County has been doing this work for some years. And, that's why Long Beach Reentry Week next week is so important because it's going to bring it home here to Long Beach. It's something that we haven't been talking about. And that's part of the underlying goals for Long Beach Reentry Week is to really have those conversations that we haven't been having about folks that experience incarceration and their process coming home.
Who should be a part of Reentry Week? I see. I'm gonna pull up some flyers. Pull up some flyers. So let me drop this, and I'm gonna take us off for just a moment. Oh, that was that I was not trying to do. Um, there we go. So here are a couple flyers for there's an event. Actually, let me go scroll back. So there's an event. There's things taking place on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday. Um, who should be attending these events? This is a lot. This is a lot going on. It looks like there's some AM activities. There's some evening activities. I even see that there's going to be a chat with two of the mayoral candidates. So who should be attending these events?
I would encourage anybody that is part of the Long Beach community to attend these events if they're able to. Monday we have a great panel lined up with four community members that live in Long Beach that have experienced incarceration. So, it'll be a great way to hear their stories, to hear about their experience coming home. On Tuesday, there's going to be folks going out to our local workforce development center, and there'll be some employers out there. So members of the reentry community should be taking advantage of these events, that are particularly targeted towards them. Wednesday, the event you talked about with the two mayoral candidates with Susie Price and Rex Richardson, that's a virtual event. And so it'd be great if as many folks could tune into that, register and tune into that event because it's going to give us an opportunity to have a conversation with both candidates about their perspectives on the reentry community and the reentry process. And they're going to reflect on some experiences that are going to be presented to them by folks from Long Beach that have experienced incarceration and have come home here to Long Beach. And so any of the events that are happening throughout the week, I would encourage folks to, check out the flyers, register for the events, because there is that underlying goal of changing the narrative. We all have a certain perspective, right? And for the most part, in Long Beach, we've continued to have a negative stereotype about people that have experienced incarceration. But that's one of the underlying goals is let's bring community members together, right? Those of us that have experienced incarceration, those of us that have not experienced incarceration, because I think once you get to know folks, it really changes the way you see things. It really changes your perspective on them. And it really changes, I think, the way that we allocate resources, the way we push elected officials to move resources, because that's the one thing that, we're historically haven't been a city that has served the reentry community in an effective way. We're starting to do a better job, but that's why it's important for everybody to learn and be educated, not just about what happens, but about the people that it happens to. We're your neighbors, we're your sons, we're fathers, we're students, we're all over the Long Beach community. And so for me, it's very important for us to get to know one another. So I would encourage anybody that, can make any of the events to attend. They're open to the public. Everything is free. There's going to be food. There's going to be, entertainment at some of the events. We even have a spiritual faith-based panel happening on Saturday where we're going to bring faith leaders from different faith traditions
Oh,
together to talk
wow.
about how they support the reentry community. We have a native elder coming out. We have a Muslim imam coming out. We have a member of the Jewish community. We have a member, a pastor, a bishop, actually from the Christian faith-based tradition, coming out and talking about how they've supported folks that are coming home. Some of them actually work in the prisons, and help folks through that process of leaving prison and coming home. And for me, it was very important. Um, Once I was able to find my faith, my path, to incorporate that into my reentry process. And so, we're going to have that panel on Saturday out at Hutton Park next to Jordan High School at the Ron Arias Health Equity Center. I think that's going to be a great event. We're going to have a community healing circle at the conclusion of that panel, where we're going to bring those faith leaders out, let them pray out in their tradition, and we're going to be closed out, in song and prayer and a drum session by natives from different California tribes, because we know that we're on unceded land, and so we want to honor that as well. And these are natives that have either experienced incarceration or are in support and have helped folks re-enter the community after incarceration. So we've tried to be as inclusive as we can. We try to, create a week-long event where people can see the different faces of the reentry community, the different uh, types of people that are part of the reentry community and that help and serve the reentry community. So I would encourage folks to really see what they can attend, and go out there and get to know people, experience it.
Wow. So for folks who are watching, listening, um next week is an opportunity to learn, opportunity to engage, opportunity to have access to resources as well. I am, I would say, a family member of formerly incarcerated. So, and as I was sharing with you earlier, like I think part of my writing skills came from being a little girl writing my brother while he was in prison, and writing, he was in Chino, and writing letters to him at like 8, 9 years old. And so I remember the lack of opportunities that he had when he returned home and finding a job and different things. And he had secured a job, doing a pretty decent job. And then one day someone had an issue that he was formerly incarcerated, and he was let go.
It happens.
And it was
Sadly, it
and
happens.
it was interesting because he had been in this job for years, and then I was like a change in management, and they were like, "Oh, he's got to go." So, so I'm definitely gonna share this information with other folks. Yet I want to kind of go back a little bit. So this event is being hosted by a group called the LB Cap Alliance. Who is that?
So that's really a coalition of reentry service providers. So a bunch of organizations, not all based in Long Beach, but they all serve folks in Long Beach that have experienced incarceration. Everything from housing organizations to legal organizations, substance abuse organizations. Just a group of orgs that serve the reentry community here in Long Beach. And this is something that we all came up with together. We said we need to start to really bring reentry in a strong way to Long Beach, and we thought about a 1 day summit, but then we got really ambitious and said, let's have a week-long event. Let's make it a series of events so we can take advantage of that whole week to create opportunities for people to engage, learn, take advantage of resources, all of those things that we've been talking about.
So I put the website here, capalliance.org. If you go to the site, folks, you will be able to see the different cities or communities that are connected to the alliance. So, like Long Beach, you can learn about Long Beach. You mentioned that this event is free for folks to attend. Okay, it's free. How's it being paid for? Like
So,
how? Because we know it takes money to make these different
right.
things happen in our community.
Right, right. No, I mean, we obviously had to raise funds because that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure was that these services were going to be free, that the food was going to be free. But we had some really generous sponsors that have sponsored, you know, um, events throughout the week, whether it be, sponsoring a particular event or sponsoring the whole week. But we did have a group of organizations. We had some individuals that really believe in supporting the reentry community, and they've been very generous with us to be able to put on this event and make it totally free. I mean, on Friday we have an event over at the compound Long Beach, where they're going to provide massages, they're going to provide like eye treatment, they're going to have snacks and drinks and stuff like that, and it's all free. They're going to have a dance session, and all of, like I said, all of this stuff is free, because we wanted to make sure that folks didn't have any excuse not to be able to come out, not to be able to attend, not to be able to take advantage of the moment, of the resources, of all of that. So I'm really proud of the alliance in doing some really hard work around fundraising to make sure that we are able to put this event, and not having to tap into other resources, into taxpayer resources, into other orgs resources. We wanted to make sure that we did a separate fundraising effort just for reentry week. So yeah, that's how we're paying for it.
So on that, I noticed that there is a lot of. I'll pull up one of these flyers and see if I pull up the right one. Okay, pulled up the one from Wednesday,
Yep.
and on the flyer I see that there's quite a bit of. There's some logos on there, and I see. I believe it's really tiny, tiny for me to see. I see that the city of Long Beach has a logo on there.
They've
Um,
donated as well.
Okay. So I hear one thing about donating. Are there funds that have been allocated just in this work in this city? Because I know way back when the Long Beach grip was moving and grooving, and Weed and Seed, there was, and during the time there was also money coming down from the state to be able to support efforts around reentry. Is there funding out there these days?
There's starting to be more funding. This funding that the city was able to donate through is a grant that's really based out of a whole nother group that you and I didn't even get to talk about earlier. There's a group that just got formed this year called the Long Beach Reentry Advisory Council. It sits within the Long Beach Health Department, and this is something that last year, I'm also part of another group called the Long Beach Coalition for Safety and Justice. Last year, we had a town hall with the mayor of Long Beach, the DA for LA County, and the Long Beach City prosecutor, and we just talked about alternatives to incarceration and reentry. And one of the things that we asked the mayor was, will you and the city form a advisory board or council or commission that would start to inform the city of Long Beach on reentry issues? And could that group be made up primarily of people that have actually experienced incarceration? And so that became what came to be this year, which is the Long Beach Reentry Advisory Council. It sits within the health department. We got a grant for the Long Beach Reentry Advisory Council, and as a council, we voted and went through the democratic process of saying, let's donate some funds to Long Beach Reentry Week, because it's something that obviously is important to the whole Reentry Advisory Council. But that's why the city's on there, because we decided that we wanted to put some of that grant money towards Long Beach Reentry Week.
Well, I definitely learned something new. Although that wasn't that town hall, wasn't that virtual?
It was a virtual time.
I recall
Mhm.
I recall attending that.
That was
Yeah.
last year, early last
Yeah.
year. And so,
Yeah, I
we worked real
remember
hard throughout
that.
the year to make it happen. And we've got a great group of people on the Reentry Advisory Council. I think,
Mhm.
we formed our mission statement, our vision statement, and we're really going to start to dig into the work and really push on the city to do more for the reentry community, bring more resources in, apply for more funding that is directly targeted towards the reentry community. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, that's one of the outcomes from that town hall. We got what we asked the mayor for, which was really this group of people that can push and advocate on the city for the reentry community.
You mentioned that you are also part of the Long Beach Coalition of Safety and Justice. Who and what is that?
So this is a group um, that the work that happens with the Long Beach Coalition for Safety and Justice has generously been funded by the California Endowment. And what they wanted was for a group to come together, and I've been tasked with leading that group over the last 5 years. A group of leaders that come from the Long Beach community that have experienced incarceration, are gang impacted, and really helping develop those folks as leaders, helping them to you know advocate and empowering them and uplifting their voices so that they can go in front of elected officials, so that we could put on events like the town hall that we put on last year. But really, it's a group that's led 100% by people that have experienced incarceration or are gang impacted. And like I said, empowering them and giving them the tools and the resources so that they can advocate for themselves, so that they can, present their stories, present their needs. Because I really believe that I don't need to speak for anybody. You know, people can speak for themselves. And that's what the coalition is really about. It's really about empowering those community members, those leaders that come out of Long Beach that have experienced incarceration or are gang impacted.
Um, Gang impacted. When you say, I've heard that term a lot lately.
Mhm.
It seems like a fairly new term phrase. What does that mean to be gang impacted?
For us, for the coalition, we take a very narrow view on what gang impacted means for us. It means you're either a former gang member or an active gang member. We do not exclude anybody because they choose to still participate in a gang. We believe that everybody needs help and everybody needs to come to that moment of clarity or change, if that's their choice, when their time is right, when it's their time. And we're not going to exclude someone because they still hang out on the corner, because they still hang out with the homies. We're not going to exclude them from a conversation. We're not going to exclude them from developing their leadership skills, from empowering them to use their voice. And so for us, for the Long Beach Coalition for Safety and Justice, that's what gang impacted means. It's something that sometimes is controversial, but we're okay with that.
Whoo, you just we're gonna have to continue this conversation because I just had some flashbacks on some work from before. It like got me a little hot now that I thought about it. And I'm gonna ask a question and then I'm gonna move on to my next thought. I'm gonna ask two questions. How are you engaging that gang impacted community to be a part of this conversation? That's one question. And how are you assuring them that when they engage in this conversation and they show up to the table and they show up to the spaces and they start using their voices, that they do not become a target from law enforcement?
Okay, so how do we engage? I'll answer that first. First of all, I'm a former gang member here from Long Beach, and so I still know and engage a lot of the homies, and I talk to them and I try to bring them to the table. There are other folks that still have ties, that still have friendships, that still associate themselves with gang members here in Long Beach, and we just do it in a very organic, grassroots kind of way. We have conversations and ask them, "Do you want to be part of this coalition?" And they often have that concern. They often bring that concern up. Well, what about the cops, right? Well, one of our unspoken and unwritten rules with the Long Beach Coalition for Safety and Justice is that no member, no organization that is affiliated with law enforcement is allowed at our table. So they're not allowed to be at our table. you know they have a lot of tables to sit at, and so this is a space that we want to be safe for those individuals that have that type of negative relationship with law enforcement or have been negatively impacted in their interactions with law enforcement. We also, although we engage with the city of Long Beach and city government, they also are not allowed a seat at our table because they most often have their own tables that they build and they choose who they include on their tables, right? And I have a lot of friends and colleagues and associates that are in law enforcement, that are part of city government, but this space is for those of us that really want to be able to say whatever we need to say. We need to be able to have those conversations in a safe space and say how we go plan and plot on making changes within these structures, within these systems. And in order to have those conversations safely and organically, they can't be at the table. So I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you. Like I said, thank you, because yeah. Like I said, I was telling someone before, reentry is not my cha-cha. Uh, I've kind of stayed informed, or kind of knowledge a little on the outskirts of stuff, but it was always too deep for me, in a sense. And the one thing that I do remember, like, um championing for folks, was, though, for folks that got usurped in the system, when they decided to step forward. So it actually, I'm glad to hear that certain people have been excluded from the table.
Yep.
And I hope that there's still space for work I mean, because there is a lot of work that has to happen between the two parties, right? And that's a whole nother conversation that I think that we probably could have, and that when we talk about community police relations, it's been due to the lack of community police relations that so many Black and brown people are currently imprisoned. But like I said, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yep.
So,
It is. It is.
wow. See, now I'm like excited about just continuing this conversation. So, Long Beach Coalition for Safety and Justice. How does someone get involved? Like, where do they go? Who do they contact if they want to become a part of this coalition? And do they have to be like, just Jerlene, layperson out here in the community that just wants to give back? Is this a space that I'm welcome to?
Absolutely. And I'm the lead, so I'm the person to contact. Um, you know, here's the thing, Jerlene, you can come to the table. You have a seat at the table,
Mm-hmm.
but always with that understanding that the work is going to be led, that the priorities are going to be designated by the leaders that have actually experienced incarceration or
Mm-hmm.
are gang impacted, right? If you're down with that, then you could be down with us. That goes for the orgs because we have organizational support too. We have a few orgs that are members of the coalition, but we have that understanding. You're there to support the leaders. You're there to support the infrastructure that we have designed. You're there to support our priorities. It's not based on any organizational agenda. It's based on the priorities that the grassroots leaders, that the homies, that the man, the woman, the individual that's coming out of prison, they designate our priorities. Every year we decide on a couple of priorities. What are we going to push on this year? Who are we going to push on this year? That's decided by those leaders. And folks, if they ain't down with it, they can move on. We're okay with that. We're okay with that.
So I have one more question, and then we'll go ahead and start closing it out. And folks, if you're watching Conversation with Jose Osuna, talking about the inaugural Long Beach Reentry Week that launches next week, Monday, July 11th. There's going to be a week of activities and events and opportunities for community to engage, learn, inspire those who are part of the reentry community, those who are connected to the reentry community, those who want to be a part and support. There's going to be opportunities to learn. I'm going to show some flyers in just a moment before we close out. Yet, my question to you is, I mean, I've lived in Long Beach all my life. Well,
Mhm.
not, I took some breaks. I lived in Whittier. I lived in Arkansas, but I, still came back. I'm on the west side of Long Beach. So I've seen a lot when
I
it
bet.
comes to gang violence, and
Hmm.
and and, and have spent some time in intervention and prevention in community. How are these spaces inclusive of our Black and brown communities? Because here in Long Beach, there's been a lot of, I mean, and it's shameful. Please don't judge me. I knew how to throw up every single gang sign in Long Beach. It was like a cool thing to do. I did it until my dad saw me do it. And all I have to say is thank goodness I was a girl. Because had I been a male, I'd have been a different type of person. um, Yet at the same time, I saw that the black and brown division still exists. How is that managed in these spaces to ensure that it's inclusive? It's an inclusive conversation.
First of all, I want to disclose something that you and I didn't talk about earlier. You know, I lost a son when he was 17 years old. You know, I'm a Latino. I'm a member of the Mexican community. Came up in primarily Mexican gang here in Long Beach, right? My son was killed by two Crips, two African American men. You know, so I'm very intimate with the black and brown conflict. It's something that's very personal to me. And so what I do and what the leaders that I get to work with do is we put that right out in the front. I work with gang members that are Crips. That's who I want to bring into the table. That's who I work really hard and intentionally at connecting with, you know, because I believe that the more we do that, the more we engage each other, the more we have conversations, you know, those of us that are a little bit older, those of us that have had more experiences, we're able to relate that to the younger fellas, to the younger women, to the younger homies, and say, you know, this is really a symptom of some community disease, and we end up suffering the consequences. We're the ones that end up butting heads. We're the ones that end up killing each other. And so for us, it's all about having conversations. We led the coalition led a 6 month long series of what we called belong circles, where we brought black people and brown people together in conversations to get to know one another around common experiences that they didn't even know they had. So for us, that's what it's about. It's about building community, having real conversations, being examples of that. And so, you know, it takes time, and it's a struggle, but we have to keep trying. We have to keep doing it because our young people continue to die. And so for me, that's why it's a very personal thing, because I lost my son at the age of 17, and I don't want another parent to feel that pain. Unfortunately, many parents have since he died, and many parents probably will continue to feel the pain of losing a child. But I want to do my part, and there's a lot of other men and women and individuals that want to do their part to start to eliminate that type of violence between black and brown. It's something that we don't talk about either. I'm glad you brought it up because too many people are not willing to talk about it, Jerlene.
Um, thank you. Um, when I did know that you had lost your son, yet I didn't register it, if that makes sense. So thank you for sharing. Um, thank you for continuing to do the work that you do in his honor, and to continue to save lives. I am a mom. My oldest is 20. My youngest son is 14. And then also I have a 17-year-old daughter and a 8-year-old boss. um, and I lost a neighborhood kid to violence. Yet I know that that's nothing compared to the loss of a child. So thank you. Um, and I just, wow, this is a conversation that we'll have to continue. And for anyone that's watching and anyone that knows, I look, I wear me. I wear me. Yet one of the reasons just wanted to have this conversation with you, is so that people can see who's connected to the work, right? Who's connected to the work and what it means for community. And not that you needed validation or proof or verification or anything. You are a reminder to those that are out there that there are people doing this work because it's their heart's work. So thank you. I appreciate you. And what you shared, it is a conversation that does not take place, the black brown conversation. And I'll share this with you. I live on Summit Street.
I hear you.
Okay. So
I
so
know
you
where
so
you're at.
you
I
so
know where you're
you
at.
you probably know what I've seen. And we
Yes.
can have some online offline conversations. And I said the best thing that ever happened to me that I was born female. Because my daddy had me on lockdown. I could not go more than 1 foot off of the from the stairway.
Right.
So it kept
Right.
me he kept me safe. And my dad, although my dad was not gang affiliated, he was respected, and they knew that in the presence of my father there was none of that, and that everybody came together and connected. So I appreciate you doing the work. Folks, having a conversation about the inaugural, and I have a feeling that next week there's going to be spaces and opportunities for people to be able to share their own stories, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
So
gonna have conversations. You know, there's gonna be opportunity to hear and share stories throughout the week. You
Okay.
know,
So
um,
that is so important. Again, it's part of our healing process. It's part of us connecting with each other. Although, I mean, you and I had a conversation. I know in community we're connected. Right now, I feel even more connected with you. And I appreciate that. And one thing that was shared with me a really long time, it says, is when we're in our vulnerable spaces, that's where we connect as individuals. So again, if you you are part of the reentry community, you are supporting a family member or trying to learn how to better support a family member, or you want to be a part of this work, or you just want to learn, check out the events that are next week. Here, let me pull these up. I will share these on my social media pages. I know that they've been shared at different spaces and places. Jose, what are some Facebook or social media spaces they can find this information?
they can always find it on my social media, Jose Osuna. They can find it on IG at the LB Cap Alliance, which is at LB Cap Alliance on IG. Um, there's a bunch of other ones at Phoenix Rise Project on IG, at LBCSJ 2020. That's the Long Beach Coalition for Safety and Justice IG Instagram. But reach out to me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on IG under my full name at Jose underscore A underscore Osuna. Reach out to me if you want more information, if you want to help out, if you just want to, you know, learn about what the events are about, and or you just want to have a conversation. I'm always down. I'm always open to talk about those things that I care about deeply.
Well, hopefully, folks, we'll see you next week at some of these events. I plan on attending a few of these in person events myself. Again, share more information on our social media. For folks that are watching, if you're watching later, please let us know that you watched. Thumbs up, give us love. You didn't like the conversation, tell us that too. You have questions, put the questions in there. Jose will make sure that he answers them. um, if you need information, put it in the thread. Um, Put hashtag repost or hashtag replay if you're watching this later, so that we know that you've been here. Please share. Again, it's Jerlene, talk of the town. Been here with Jose Osuna, having a real talk conversation that's relevant to our community, here to engage, inform, inspire. And we're going to continue this conversation, right?
Absolutely, I'm
All
down.
right, we're going to continue. So please don't go anywhere. I'm going to take us off live, but please stay in the broadcast room. Thank you, folks. Jerlene, live from Long Beach. Catch up with you later.
Bye, everybody.